And it turns out you're both stuck in the airport for the next 3 hours. So you go find a table together, you sit down together, and this dear friend looks at you across the table and says, you know, how has your life been these last 5 years? And you say, you know what? This has been the best 5 years of my life because. Now, the point of the exercise is you've got to tell me what comes after the word because.
Welcome to Inspired Choice today. I'm Biesalski and I'm thrilled to have you here. On this show, we go beyond the ordinary, diving into the stories of remarkable individuals from around the globe, leaders, entrepreneurs, authors, and creatives who have made bold choices to pursue their passions. Each guest on Inspired Choice today has a unique journey to share, filled with insights, breakthroughs, and lessons that inspire and uplift. My goal is to bring you real conversations that fuel your own journey, whether you're seeking personal growth, business wisdom, or simply a spark of inspiration to say yes to your own dreams. Thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation and purpose. Now, let's get into today's inspiring interview. Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline and my today's guest is Scott Maderer, and I'm so happy that you are here for our interview. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Great. And I would love to introduce you to the audience. Of course, you and your wife, Carrie, founded Inspired Stewardship in 2011 to help Christian men and couples align their time, talent, and treasures to live out their calling and serve others. As certified human behavior consultants and members of the John Maxwell team, you provide coaching, workshops, and speaking engagements. In 2017, you took your business full-time and your book, Inspired Living, Assemble the Puzzle of Your Calling, was published in July 2024. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Scott Maderer.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Wow, it's so exciting speaking with you today about what inspired you and your wife to start Inspired Stewardship, and how has your mission evolved since 2011?
Sure. So, I've done a lot of things over the years, as has my wife. And I was a school teacher for 16 years. And then I went into the corporate world. And actually in 2011, when we started this business on the side, I was actually still in the corporate world and working that. And what really came together was a combination of two things. One, my wife and I went through our own journey where we had some financial challenges. I was actually suicidal because of finances. We almost got a divorce because of finances. And we kind of found a way to turn that around. And we did that ourselves. And as people observed what we were doing and that we were doing things kind of weird and different than most people were, people started saying, hey, how are you doing that? And asking for help. And so we just kind of started helping people through our church and through other organizations on the side, just, informally helping people out. And as we were doing that, I realized that it gave me feedback that the things that I really loved about teaching and the things I loved about my corporate job, when I got to work with and coach other people, that showed up even more. And so my wife and I began to talk it over, and we're like, well, maybe we can turn this into a business. So we started it on the side as kind of an extra thing while we were still working the day job and paying the bills with that. And over time, as we did it more, it became very clear that this is really what we were called to do. And so we worked out a plan, went through it, and eventually took the business full time in 2017.
Wow, I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing. And also that you discovered your gifts and talents on the way, and then you transformed it into a business, and now you are doing it full time, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. I love that. Okay, I have another question for you. Of course, how do you help individuals align their time, talent, and treasures to live out their calling authentically?
So a lot of that is about doing some work on yourself. So usually people come to me and they think the problem is around time or it's around money. I don't have enough time to really do what I'm supposed to be doing, or I don't have enough money to do what I'm really supposed to be doing. My joke is the real truth is all I ever work on is talent, because at the end of the day, it's really not about your time. It's really not about your money. It's about you. How are you handling yourself, which then shows up in your time and your money. The time and the money are the symptom. The actual work that has to be done is internal. It's on you. So we spend a lot of time figuring out things like, what is your real passionate why? And I've got exercises that we go through to figure out what that is. I can share some of those today if you'd like, where you do a looking back exercise and then you do a looking forward exercise. You kind of put those pieces together to kind of figure out, hey, what am I actually supposed to be doing? What do I love? What gives me energy? What gives me joy versus what am I not doing? One thing too that I spend a lot of time on is recognizing that your calling and your career or your job, or what I like to call your assignments. So we all have a lot of assignments. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a church member, I'm serve on a nonprofit board, I work in this area, I have my job, I have this. We all have a lot of assignments or roles that we take on, and those aren't your calling. However, your calling will show up in those, if that makes sense. In other words, I'm looking for ways that I can authentically live my calling while I'm being a husband, while I'm being a father, while I'm doing my job, while I'm doing my career. I think that's a confusion that a lot of people have, is that calling and career mean the same thing. They actually don't. They're really from totally different words. Career and vocation are the kind of two roots. Vocation comes from the same word as vocalization. It means to call, where career is actually from the root word that means cart. It's something that gets you from point A to point B. So your career is something that, just kind of funds you or works you through from point A to point B, while your calling is deeper than that. It's something that calls you from outside. And so we spend a lot of time on identifying what that is, connecting people to that. And then once you've kind of got that direction, okay, now we're putting together a plan. We're diving into the time side. We're diving into the money side. We're putting together the kind of tactical pieces of, how do you get your money under control? How do you get your time under control? How do you get you under control so that you can actually go out and live that out in whatever way that looks?
Wow, there were so many nuggets in what you said. First of all, I thought it has to do with self-discipline. When you talked about people are coming to you with a lack of time and money, and they think this is the problem. Then they discover this is not the problem. You only have to manage yourself. Now, you said it's about having you under control. For example, your thoughts maybe, or the way you think. There were so many. I love how you dissect the words. You explained the root of career versus what was the other calling?
Vocation.
As well. Yes, vocation, the same root from voice, right? It comes from voice. The voice is calling you. I love that. And of course, I would love to know more about your exercises.
Sure.
Yes. You can do this now.
Sure. Yeah. Let me share it. So real quick, this is something that anyone could do. And at the end, I'll share a way you can go get these in writing, and it'll help you if you are listening right now and you're driving your car or something like that and can't pay attention to them. So it's really a pretty simple exercise. So the first one is a looking backwards exercise. So remember, I said your assignments aren't the same as your calling, or your career isn't the same thing as your calling. You need to look at all of your assignments. So what this is literally start brainstorming, take a piece of paper down the left-hand side, start putting down every sort of thing you've done, every assignment you've had. And remember, this is broader than just jobs or things like that. It's literally, it could be every relationship, every interaction, every role that you take on, father, husband, that time at band camp, whatever, all of the different things that you've experienced, as much as you can brainstorm. Just keep writing them down. And then next to it, draw a column. You're going to need 2 columns total. So one with the assignment or the thing that you're doing, and then 2 columns beside it. In that first column, begin to brainstorm when you did that thing, when you were volunteering, when you were working, when you're a husband, when you're a father, when you're a wife, when you're whatever role it is, begin to write down all of the things about that role that you love. All of the things about that role that give you energy, all of the things about that role that give you joy. Just begin writing them down and do that for every single one of those assignments. This is a lot of writing. And then in the next column, begin to kind of reflect on those same activities, those same assignments, and say, okay, what is it about these that doesn't give me energy? What is it about these that drains my energy? What is it about these that doesn't give me joy? What is it about these that I'm not the biggest fan of? I don't like to use the word hate, but if you want to, call it the things you hate. It's all of those things that you love and those things you don't love. And after you've done that, go back through the whole document and begin to look for patterns. What you'll notice is things that give you energy and joy will show up over and over again in multiple roles. And the same thing for the things that don't give you energy and don't give you joy. The same sorts of things will begin to show up over and over again. Okay, so why is that valuable? Well, as we're looking backwards, what we're doing is bubbling up nuggets of things that are aligned with what our real deeper meaning is, or deeper passion, what I would call a calling that comes from outside of us. It's aligned with our gifts, it's aligned with our values, it's aligned with our priorities. But remember, we're looking backwards there. So we also have to do some dreaming or some looking forward. So this is, again, simple exercise to do. This one's a little bit more of a thought exercise, but you can write it down or you could record it in your voice app. So I said it in an airport because back when I worked in corporate, I was always in airports. I traveled all the time. And so for me, airports kind of are those perfect liminal spaces where you're kind of in between things. So imagine for a minute that you'd been on a trip and you were in the airport, and on the flight back, you have a layover, where you land at another airport, and you're there for maybe a few minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, and then you get on another plane and then you fly on home. And as you're walking, you got off the one airport, and you're bebopping down to the gate, and you're moving along. And as you get to the gate where the plane that you're supposed to catch is, sure enough, those dreaded words are up there on the screen: flight delayed. You now have about a 4-hour layover in this airport in the middle of nowhere. You have nothing to do. You don't know anybody. You're stuck there for 3 or 4 hours while you're waiting for the next plane. So you do what anyone does when they're stuck in an airport for a period of time with nothing to do. You go find a restaurant or a bar where you can have something to eat or a drink. So you go find that place, and as you're walking into the restaurant, you look up and you happen to see a friend. Now, this is set 5 years in the future. So this is 5 years from today when you're in this airport. And this friend that you see, you haven't seen for the last 5 years. It was a good friend, but they moved away and you moved away. You both got busy and you kind of have lost touch. You really haven't talked consistently for the last 5 years. We all know that happens sometimes, even with really dear friends. So they look at you and you look at them. Hey, how great to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. It's great to catch. What's going on? And it turns out you're both stuck in the airport for the next 3 hours. So you go find a table together. You sit down together. And this dear friend looks at you across the table and says, how has your life been these last 5 years? And you say, you know what? This has been the best 5 years of my life because. Now, the point of the exercise is you've got to tell me what comes after the word because. What is it about your relationships? What is it about your finances? What is it about your work? What is it about your spiritual life? What is it about all of the different things that make up our life? What is it about those things that would make you honestly say, you know what, this has been the best 5 years of my life? What would your finances look like? What would your career look like? What would your productivity and your time look like? Would you be on the beach somewhere or would you be working? By the way, one of those, a lot of people hear that and go, well, obviously I'd be on a beach. I don't want to be on a beach somewhere. Part of my next 5-year dreams is continue to do what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. So it's not necessarily about, quote, relaxing and sitting with your feet up. It's about what are you really driven to do that would make you say, this has been the best 5 years of my life. Write all of that down. And then what you've got now is kind of a direction that you're trying to head in all of those different areas of your life. That's the forward looking. And from the backward looking exercise, you've got patterns of things that should show up that give you joy, that give you energy, that are clearly aligned with your gifting. And now it's a matter of saying, okay, how do I put a plan together that moves me from where I'm at towards where I want to go, that uses all of these giftings that I have, that supports them? And that may be changing careers. It may not be. By the way, I know people that work in an area and pay the bills with something that really isn't 100% aligned to their gifting, because that gives them the freedom to then show up in other places in their life really aligned with their gifting. And they like that. That's a choice that they've made. But that's why these kind of exercises help you, because now you can start being intentional. You can start being deliberate about saying, how do I want to show up? What should that look like? What do I want to do? What do I want to be when I grow up? I tell people that's a great question to ask. I don't care whether you're 9 or 99. It's still a great question to ask. What do I want this next period to look like, and how should that show up?
I love that question about growing up, because we never grow up in a way. And I also love that exercise. Thank you so much for inspiring me and us. And I would call it the airport exercise. I don't know how you call it.
I call it the airport question. That's the second one. Yeah.
Question, yes. And then connecting the dots, looking backwards, or doing a reverse engineering, so to say, combining the two parts. And of course, it takes little time, but then you know exactly where you are going, where you are flying, because you are flying high and you are so happy that you found your calling. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
Let's have a look. Can you share some key insights from your book, Inspired Living, that can help people assemble the puzzle of their own calling? Was this the exercise? Is it part of your book?
Yes, those exercises, both of those are part of the book. I also go into some exercises that are specific to time and specific to money, in terms of some reflections that you can do, because one of the things that I believe in is that we should be aligned or integrated, where all different components of our life show up. And one of the things that I see a lot of people struggle with is they'll say something is really important to them. It's a priority. It's a value. Maybe it's family. Family is a value of mine. It's something that's very important. But then when you look at their calendar or their checkbook, family doesn't really show up in those things. And so a lot of times that gives them kind of that feeling of, I say family is important, but I'm not really living it out. It's not showing up in my day-to-day life. How can I make that thing that I say is important really show up? And so in the book, we spend a lot of time kind of on a couple of different levels. We talk about mindset, belief, limiting beliefs, those sorts of things. And then we talk about some tactical stuff. What can you do practically? Because it's all well and good to talk about all the philosophy and the thinking and the mindset, but at the end of the day, you've still got a certain amount of work to get done, and a certain, the laundry's still got to get washed and that kind of thing. So some practical, tactical tips around our time and our money. And then the third leg is to kind of begin to put those in practice, so that you can go through what I call the phases, which is, the first one is spending time on yourself, working on you. And then the second one is to serve others. So we work on ourselves, then we work serving others. We find a way to take what we're good at and connect to other people. Out of that begins to develop influence. And out of that influence, we develop an impact. So it's this kind of 4-phase journey. And impact here, by the way, does not mean you have to have 1 million followers and reach a bazillion people and all that. Impact could be just one person that you're making a change in their life. But impact is, ultimately how we measure whether or not we're really beginning to live out our calling. Because when we begin to see that show up in an impact on not just our own life, but on others.
Wow, I love what you said about the 4 phases as well. It's also about growing your zone, so to say. I don't know if you talk about comfort zones. It takes courage, of course, to change your life and to make this decision or choice. I love the word so much. You talked about helping others. For example, coaching or mentoring. Do you have coaches for yourself? And who was the best coach you ever? I know, John Maxwell. Let's talk about John Maxwell. Or are there others?
Sure. No, I've had literally hundreds of coaches in my life over the years, some of them formally and some of them informally, where they've, I call people sometimes a virtual mentor. So I may not have met them in the real world, but through their books or their teachings or other things, I've been influenced by them. And then, of course, there's actual people I've either hired or I've worked with to show up in my life and directly coach as well. As a coach, one of the things I always tell people you should ask a coach is, do you have coaches? Because I think if coaches believe in coaching, they probably should have coaches in their life, at least most of the time, if not all of the time. But it's ironic to me that a lot of times coaches don't actually get coaches in their life. And the truth is we can't coach ourselves. So yeah, I've worked with John now for about 12 years, where I've been part of his circle. He's definitely been a big influence on my life. He's someone that a lot of what he teaches about leadership and about service really resonates. The gentleman who did the foreword for my book, which is Dan Miller, who wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love. He's always been a tremendous mentor of mine. He passed away recently, but he's been a tremendous influence on my life. He's somebody I've interacted with a large amount, and he's always been a coach for me. While I was writing the book, I had a writing coach who worked with me on putting together the book and what do we do and how do you do it and all of that. So I've always been a big proponent of, when you find areas of your life that you're challenged in, that you need to develop in, connecting with a coach, connecting with somebody who's a little further along in the journey, and using what they've already learned to help kind of pour into you. And a lot of times it's just having that second mind for accountability. I always tell people, it's funny, but just knowing that you're going to meet with your coach on Wednesday, a lot of times gets you to get up off the couch and go ahead and do the thing that you need to do. It's kind of like hiring a physical trainer. You show up at the gym and you won't work out, but if you hire a physical trainer, you show up at the gym and they're like, you're working out. It's like, okay. And you do it. So it's the same sort of idea. So that accountability piece. And then as well as a coach, what I've always wanted from coaches and what I try to provide is the chance of asking really good questions. Because a lot of times you kind of already know what's going on, but you need to hear that question from outside to help you kind of process through it and think it through and arrive at that feeling of, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm comfortable with where I'm at, but I truly believe there's something better on the other side. And I've got to go through this zone of discomfort. And so the accountability helps push us through that so that I can get to the other side where it's even better. I'm doing more. So most of my clients are not people that are quote in crisis or anything like that. They're in that place where it's like, I'm doing pretty good, but I just know I could be better. I just know I could do more.
Wow, I love that. That makes sense to me. Also, when you talked about accountability, yes, it's true. And we can tell ourselves that we can do it alone, but it's better to have a coach as well. And yeah, my next question about where can we find you when people reach out to you? Yes.
Sure. So I actually put together a page just for your listeners. So if you go over to my website, which is inspiredstewardship.com, and then just put in /inspired choice. So that's inspiredstewardship.com/inspired choice. You'll find a page there. I've put some of these resources and exercises that I just was talking about. There's a link there where you can get those for free. There's also some more information about my book and my own podcast and some other things like that, places you can connect with me. There's also a link on there where you can set up a 30-minute call. No pressure. This is really just to get to know you, find out more about what you're doing and what questions you have as well there. So feel free to use that. So all of that is over at inspiredstewardship.com/inspired choice.
Oh, thank you so much. This is an honor for me that you created a site and a special offer for the audience. Please reach out to Scott or check out the website. Of course, you can also reach out to me. I will introduce you, of course. And now it's time for your last thought to the audience, please.
I think the last thought that I would share is, the title of the book is Inspired Living, and it talks about assembling the puzzle of your call. What I always talk to people about is when we talk about assembling the puzzle, we use that analogy on purpose in the book. only it's a little more than just that. It is an idea of, you put together the edge pieces, right? This is how most of us do a puzzle. And then you begin to fill in the middle, and, you're looking at the box to see what the picture is supposed to look like. What I always remind people, though, is when it comes to our calling, a lot of times, number one, the picture on the box changes over time. So you start putting the puzzle together, and then it's like the next time you look at the box, it's like, wait a minute, where'd the horse come from? Stuff appears in your puzzle. And other things happen too. Sometimes we're missing some pieces. We need to go out and do something to develop or learn. And other times we've actually got extra pieces. That's kind of what I call limiting beliefs that come programmed into us. Sometimes we get pieces from other people that get pushed into us that aren't really our puzzle. They don't belong to our puzzle, but somebody else thinks they do. So they're trying to push it on us. So it's this kind of evolving, interactive, changing over time process. So it's not even just assembling a puzzle. It's assembling a puzzle that sometimes you have extra pieces, sometimes you're missing pieces, and sometimes the picture on the box is changing. And that's why I spend so much time with my clients, oftentimes over years, because this is an evolving process that changes over time.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And this puzzle analogy, I learned so much in our episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
And see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Inspired Choice Today podcast. We hope you found today's conversation as enriching as we did. If you're feeling inspired and ready to take the next step in your own journey, I'd love to offer you a free 20-minute consultation. This is a chance to explore any challenges you're facing, get clarity on your goals, or just connect and discuss where you want to go next. Reach out to me directly to schedule your consultation. I'd be honored to support you on your path. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode filled with inspiration, insights, and powerful stories. Until next time, keep making those inspired choices every day.